Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Bri Rhea. Welcome to the Monday movement series of Pilates chair or chair Pilates with MS Views and News. So excited to be back again with you this month. For today's class, we're going to be talking a lot about posture. So even when we're moving the body, what kind of posture are we in to allow our body to maintain the sort of efficiency and effectiveness of our movements? So when we think about how our body is positioned, where you are on your chair right now, I want you to put your hands onto your hips. Okay, so with your hands onto your hips, I want you to start to rock the pelvis back and forth, okay? So that your tailbone sort of scoops underneath of you and then it starts to like point the tail back behind you, okay? So this is called flexion and extension. Or you could think of it as like your cat spine and then your cow spine. Whether your hands are on your hips or on your knees, do what feels comfortable for you. Okay, so then between that extension where the tailbone is like boop, pooping back or popping back behind you, not pooping, but popping back behind you, and then that point of flexion where it's curling underneath of you, I want you to find that soft, like Goldilocks, that sweet spot between the two. Okay, and so now I want you to imagine that your pelvis, with your hands on your pelvis, or like most people say, it's all hands on your hips. Imagine that you're holding a fishbowl in your hands. Okay, so that fishbowl is like filled to the very top, to the brim, full up of water. And where you're seated is where we're going to maintain without letting the water spill forward, okay, or into that extension, or without letting the water spill backwards or into that flexion. There will be points during the class today where we want to find that sort of C curve, but it's almost like we're trying to like just barely dribble the water down the back side of the water bowl, okay? Or if we're in that nice tall spine position, it's called a hinge back, to where we're keeping that alignment from hip to head, okay? Whether our arms are out in front or we're lifting and lowering the legs. These are just example movements that we're going to be coming in for class today, okay? So right now, feet are about hip distance apart. Where you're seated, so that means like you see your knees right in front of the hips, the feet right underneath of the knees, and your fishbowl is filled to the top of water, not spilling forward, not spilling back, okay? So where you are right now, I want you to think about like there's a string pulling you up towards the ceiling. Hands just resting onto your lap. And then as you exhale that breath out from the mouth, I know it sounds obnoxious, but that is your Pilates breath in through the nose, finding all of that expansion, that length, that lift into the spine, and then exhaling out through the mouth as if you're like, you've got glasses or goggles in your mouth, you're trying to clean them and get all of that like fogginess on the, they're not windows, but on the lenses. Okay, so continue with that same breath. The breath is the like center focal point of Pilates movements, because it not only sets the rhythm for ourselves, inhaling to always find length, and then exhaling to try to find that deep core connection. So Pilates, Joseph Pilates, who is the founder of Pilates, called it the powerhouse. So imagine that like your center of the body, which connects the top and the bottom of the body, is our engine. Okay, so I want you to now place your hands onto your rib cage. So it's like if you just had your hands on your pelvis, your hips, and you just went like boop up a little bit higher. Okay, so now when you breathe in, I want you to feel the lateral expansion of the rib cage, pushing your ribs out into your hands. And then when you breathe out, feel the ribs pulling away from your hands, like they're trying to come together towards each other. So continue there with that same breath. Feel the softness of the shoulders. So we're not breathing up and down, but instead just focusing on the out and the in. One more time. Now, one hand on the front of your belly, one hand on the small of your back. So now breathing outward into the hands as if the belly is pulling forward, as if you could breathe into your back. And then exhale like you're making a ham sandwich and you're squishing it down flat. pull the front and back sides of your body towards each other. Continue with that breath. And you might start to notice how if you start to feel like your posture or your fishbowl is starting to get a little lazy, like where your posture is at, you're going to start to feel how the front and back side will start to collapse on each other. We want to keep them nice and like columns parallel to each other, okay? Another reason, one more time, why breath work is so important is because it gives the body energy. It gives the cells, the oxygen, the nutrients, the air that it needs to stimulate the muscles to move, okay? So now that we understand like breath work and where we want to be breathing into, we have all of these components of the core working with us. Now the last component, and like probably the hardest, most challenging one to get into, is the pelvic floor. So if you feel comfortable with it, you're going to place your hand like underneath of your seat, okay? And you could also just place like a towel or a blanket if you had something like that nearby, but something underneath of you, because that pelvic floor is right resting under your fishbowl, okay? It's as if your fishbowl was resting onto a blanket, okay? So think about you pulling the blanket up inside of you as you exhale. And then as you inhale, you're kind of letting the fishbowl get a little heavier onto that blanket. So there's a blanket of muscles. When you exhale, you're lifting them up inside of you. Those are your pelvic floor muscles. As you inhale, they rest back down. And as you exhale, they pull back up and in. Okay, so this is again why breathing is so important with Pilates, is because we have our diaphragm, which rests right under that apex of the rib cage, and then we have our pelvic floor. And if you can see my hands, they're very similar to like the same sides of a parenthesis. So when we breathe in, the diaphragm moves down, and so does the pelvic floor. When you exhale, the pelvic floor and the diaphragm lift back up. Inhale, lowering everything down. So when you pull the diaphragm down, that expands the ribs, the lungs, and opens up all the airways. And as you exhale, pulling the muscles up and in. And you have control over those muscles. Those are the same muscles as if you were like holding in a fart, trying to lift something up out of your pants. Like maybe think about like making a dinner napkin with those, like a fancy dinner napkin with those pelvic floor muscles, okay? All right, so with that piece of like what is the powerhouse? We have pelvic floor muscles, we have front and back of the body, we have sides of the body. It is all connected and it can all work together, but you have to focus. So that's another part of today's class that I really try to drive home with everybody, no matter who you are, is just listen to your body, and the body will start to talk to you. Like you'll start to feel like, oh wait, am I starting to curl to lean back? Or am I able to make sure that like from hip to head on one long straight line, okay? Because there is a difference with that. All right, so let's start. We're gonna build ourselves up from the heels to the top of the head. So with your feet flat onto the ground, you should still have them hip distance apart. Just rest your hands onto your knees and kind of lean forward into them. So the arms are long, legs are down underneath of those hands now. So you're creating a little bit of pressure into your legs, okay? So then lifting your heels up and then lowering back down. Exhale to lift and inhale to lower. So as you're doing this, notice how like your body is kind of moving forward and back. When your hands just placed forward, it's not that you're going like down and up with your arms, but because your heels are lifting and lowering, your body starts to lean forward when the heels go down and then lift back up to stack above that fishbowl of your pelvis, okay? So you'll hear me say a lot of times like hips, heart, and head, like lining them up. So when your heels lift, try to line up hips, heart, and head again, and then lower back down. So each time you're taking that big exhale out, you're focusing on that lift of the pelvic floor, that wrap of the rib cage around, that pulling upward and inward of the rest of the muscles on the sides of the body, on the front of the body, the back of the body. Now keep the heels lifted, so that means hips, heart, head are stacked, and then lift the arms up in front of you. Okay, so heels are lifted, arms are lifted, and now bending the arms so you look like a genie, you're about to like grant a wish, And then exhale, rotate from one side to the next. Exhaling to one side, inhaling, coming to the other side. And so exhaling, coming to the other side, inhaling, coming right back center. So it's as if there's like, you're a carousel and the spine, there's a pull, that middle of the carousel going right down to the top of your head, all the way to the bottom of your hips there, where your tailbone is on your chair. And you're rotating around it. You're not going from like side to side rotating or even like side bending, but you are lifting up each time you inhale, trying to pull the heels even higher. And if it's too confusing or like lifting the heels isn't accessible for you, just leave the heels down and rotate the body. A lot of Pilates is also focused on the spine health, okay? So he was a strong proponent of being able to move the body the way that it was meant to move. Go ahead and switch which arm is on top, okay, and continue from side to side. And so these tiny movements, as you'll start to feel and notice throughout the class today, is also just like, keeping the arms lifted in front of you doesn't seem hard at first, but it is, okay? It will continue to get, more challenging. The more you know, the better you do. Let's do one more time each side there. And then after you're done with your second side, once you rotate and finish that rotation, come back to look center, lower the heels down, hands go back onto the knees again. So we're kind of leaning forward. But now we're going to lift the toes up and down. So now because the heels are staying planted, there's not going to be any like backwards or forwards movement with the body. Okay, your heels stay down into the ground, but you're looking down and making sure that like both sets of toes on right and left side are lifting evenly with each other. Okay, so it's like you're looking over like a wishing well and you're like, okay, your wish that you want to come true is that both feet are coming up equally with each other. Okay, so when we think about our feet, like that is like, it's like a beautiful metaphor of like staying grounded, not just with a physical ground, but also staying grounded in your body, in life. Okay, so if we can lift ourselves up, if we can lift our toes up, you'll start to feel how the front shin muscles are starting to work. So if you're walking around and you're tripping over your feet, those muscles, that's what we're strengthening right now, okay? Now, hold the toes lifted. Now, it's going to start to burn here. Then lift the arms back up in front of you. Bring your genie arms back to the party here. So elbow on top of hand and then hand on top of elbow. So we're not quite giving ourselves like a hug, but we're stacking elbow and hand and elbow. Okay, so now from there, I want you to hinge the body back. So like there's that string that's pulling your head upward is now pulling you like at a slight angle backwards. And then exhale forward. Inhale, lean yourself back. And then exhale forward. Can you do this without letting your feet like boop, lift off of the ground? Okay, we'll get there. Everything about Pilates is also layering in. Go ahead and switch the arms. Which arm is on top? And then which arm is on the bottom. And so when you're leaning back and taking that inhale, it's where you're trying to keep the space between your hips and the ribs the same. Okay, so if you had suspenders between your hips and the ribs, you're not lengthening the suspenders. So we're not extending the spine back. We're keeping the distance between suspenders, between hips and ribs the same. Okay. Let's go one more time. Those front shins are probably really burning, like mine are, okay? And then lower the toes back down and give your legs a little shake, a little bit of movement there, okay? One leg goes out and give yourself a little ankle roll in one direction and then the other direction. And then switch sides, one direction and the other direction, okay? So just getting that blood flow down to the feet so that we can connect to not just the ground, but to our body, okay? What the feet that actually bring us through life. All right, so now from here, you can bring your hands down by your side and kind of like tuck them underneath of either your hips or the chair that you're sitting on. Feet are still staying hip distance apart, and I want you to try to remain upright, okay? So with that hip, heart, head connection, once you start to lift one leg up off of the ground and then lower it back down. With your hands underneath of your chair or under your hips, I want you to notice or pay attention to if your body likes to like leaning Tower of Pisa to the side to compensate for the pattern. We don't want that to happen. Instead, we want to keep the alignment between hips and heart, head, as well as like from front to back, from top to bottom, okay? It's like we just took a picture of your body and all that's moving is like Harry Potter picture. All that's moving is your legs, okay? And so if your hands are tucked underneath of your chair, like pull up on that chair so you can lift taller, 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 taller. And remember, drawing the navel towards the spine, almost like somebody took like a roll of saran wrap around your body and you're trying to like pull away from that saran wrap, okay? Now we add a little bit more onto your layers and you hinge back as your leg lifts up, whichever leg, and then you come back upright when your leg goes down. Hinge back as your leg lifts up, and then lower it back down. Okay, so then if holding onto the chair feels comfortable for you and it's like, I want a little more challenge, then I want you to bring the opposite arm of the opposite leg up in front of you. Okay, so then it starts to become not only a body workout, but more of a brain workout. One arm and opposite leg lift up, and it's very similar to now you like marching in place. One leg and the opposite arm. One leg and the opposite arm. Okay, and again, we want to make sure that our body isn't kind of leaning to one side. We want to stay in our lane, okay? So don't drift over onto the other side or the other person's lane there. You don't want to crash your car. We want to stay efficient and effective with our movement, okay? And moving with the breath, okay? So at some point, it might feel comfortable to maybe exhale back and then inhale back up. Whichever breath you are taking, as long as you are breathing, because some people, once we get into new movements, got about 2 more each side. Once we get into new movements, a lot of people will like tense the body, hold the breath, and then wait until we're done. Okay, 1 more each side. And then once you're done with that, our next and final layer is where you can either stay upright and just extend one leg out in front of you, okay, and then switch the other leg. Or if you would like to continue onto those layers, opposite arm, opposite leg, straightening and kicking out, and then opposite arm, opposite leg, straightening and kicking out as you hinge back, okay? So if your chair has a back onto it, let that be your little bit of feedback, okay? So it's like you're touching the back of the chair, boop, and then bringing yourself back upright, okay? Hinging from the hips to the top of the head as one arm, one leg, and you're trying to get them like almost parallel with each other. So you could like draw a line and like there's that parallel or box-like connection from one arm to the next. So with these leg extensions, we're strengthening the quads. Okay, so we're building up those big thigh muscles so that we can have the support underneath of us when we do need to stand or walk or move from sit to stand. All right, let's do 2 more each side, reaching back, whether you're still holding onto or underneath of the chair, or maybe not at all, okay? There are different and various levels that you can go through. 1 more each side. All right, and then take a drink of water, okay? So making sure it's hot out there. It's almost middle of summer at this point. So even just like a quick sip of water is gonna keep the body nice and like lubricated. If you think of the body as like a sponge, the connective tissue, the fascial connective tissue is very similar to a sponge. The drier it is, the more it's like a dry, brittle sponge. You can't do the dishes with a dry sponge. So just like you can't move with a dry, brittle body, we want to keep it hydrated and moving effectively. All right, so now we're going to take the feet out wide, like as wide as you can get them. And sometimes like if you need to like pick up that leg and put it out wide, just make sure it stays there and that it doesn't like cave in on itself. But so holding this, what's called abduction, abduction, you are pulling or abducting the legs away from the midline of the body. You're going to start to work into the glutes. Okay, so wherever you are in that wide, almost like a sumo squat position, sitting upright, hips, heart, head in line, your hands can reach forward in front of the chair in front of you, wherever you're at, or to the sides. But now it's a tiny, tiny movement. You might not even be able to see it happening right now with how I'm demoing it, but from the side, you're just letting the knees gently collapse in and then pull them back out. Gently collapse in and then pull them back out. So make sure that the feet are staying heavy into the earth. Your upright posture is because your core is involved, hips, heart, head in line. And if you want more like challenge, let the arms stay out in front of you. Okay, challenge the arms there, challenge the shoulders. And if you still want more challenge as those legs are pulsing back and forward, raise the arms up overhead. But make sure that when you're like, you're saying to yourself like goal, like make sure that the shoulders aren't up by the ears like earmuffs. No. We want to keep the neck long, shoulders soft, and like pulling the shoulders down like you're trying to like pull something towards you. Okay, so yeah, there might be a little soft bend into the elbows. So just holding this upright position. So now we've got the 4 H's, hips, heart, head, and then hands all in line while you're pulling back, pulling back, pulling back the entire time, okay? So now glutes on fire at this point. Wherever your hands are, we're gonna add some rotation. So now just pull the legs back, hold that position, and now rotate from right to left. Inhale, center. And then exhale, rotate to the other side. Sometimes if holding the arms up overhead, like if you have any shoulder issues or it feels like a pinch more than like I'm holding my arms up, I want you to put your hands on top of your head, and that gives you a little bit more feedback of like, what are you lifting up into, so that you can lift up into your hands. Like you have a basket on your head and you're trying to like push it up so that it connects to the ceiling. Keep holding those legs apart. Very ladylike position, definitely. But now feel each time that you exhale and you rotate, you feel that saran wrap that's wrapped around your waistline, pulling like your waist away from it. One more to the right, and then one more to the left. And then place those arms back down. We're not going to move the legs, but instead, we'll move the feet, but instead we're going to let the knees pull in towards each other and then pull back out. So allow them, like you're trying to squeeze something between the legs. So if you have any like knee issues or ankle issues, and that this is called adduction, you are adding the legs together. If this bothers you at all, just walk the feet in a little closer and let them touch now, okay? So if you are at that closer angle, like I'm demoing here, let that happen. Let them squeeze and like a tug of war, but it's more like a push of war, and then open them back out again. Push into each other and then open back out again. So your hands will start underneath the chair. If you want to go right into it, arms go out to the side, holding that position, reaching like long fingertips, like you got like magic shooting out of your fingertips instead of just like kind of hanging them there. Like energy, like where is your energy? You look like a starfish, like all of like 5 points of contact, like even your knees when they open back out and that head is lifting up, the fingertips reaching out. You exhale, squeeze the legs together, squeeze the butt cheeks together, and feel that like wrapping of the powerhouse, lifting of the powerhouse. Okay, so now try arms overhead, see how that feels, or hands on top of the head. Whichever feels most comfortable for you, because we don't want it to be any sort of strain in the body. We never want it to be like, oh my gosh, how much longer? We want it to be like, okay, I'm strong, I'm stable, I'm connected to my body in this present moment right here, right now, and I'm challenging myself. Not like, oh, I can't, I like 2 more and like I'm done. No, we want to challenge ourselves instead. Okay, so do like 2 more here. And then you're going to hold and squeeze the legs together on this last one. Hold, squeeze, really push. Who's going to win, right or left side? And they're both going to win because now you're going to rotate from side to side, from right to left on your exhale. Inhale, look center. Make sure you're still squeezing those legs. And then exhale to the opposite side. So if those hands are on top of the head or reaching up, make sure that those shoulders are down away from the ears rather than like holding them here and like their earmuffs. No. Keep them down away from the ears. You have a long, beautiful neck. You're wearing dangly earrings and you're trying not to let your shoulders touch the earrings. Keep squeezing those legs together. 2 more each side. All right, last one to the right, last one to the left, or if you started on the left, end on the right. Ooh. All right, good. And so now bring the hands down and behind you. You might have to scooch forward on the edge of your chair a little bit and walk the feet forward, but windshield wiper. Legs move from side to side. just to kind of help bring all of that blood flow from the low back down to the hips, into the knees, the legs, and the feet. If you have any problems with these windshield wipers, you don't have to lean back into the hands. You can do one leg at a time, in, out, okay? So there's always variations. And if you have questions during or after the class, type it into the chat and we'll talk about it afterwards, okay? All right, so now let's move upwards into the arms, okay? So the upper body here. So start with your arms out in front. Well, we kind of already started, but like rolling the wrists, like you just got a bunch of new jewelry and you're showing it off, okay? One direction and then the other direction. So when we think about movement, you can also think about it as medicine. Our bodies were meant to move here, okay? So now those arms out in front of you, palms are outstretched or upright towards the ceiling, like you're like, give me the gift. And then pull your hands, tap the shoulders, reach back out in front of you. But doing this without letting your arms just drop or your elbows bend by your side. Keep your elbows lifted out in front of the shoulders. So it is just an elbow flexion when they bend and extension when they extend, when they stretch out. And you'll start to feel front where the biceps are and back of the arm where the triceps are. Figure out which breath helps to pull the arms in, helps to extend them out. And then you're going to leave the arms bent at that 90-degree position. Turn the palms in towards each other, okay? So like they're about to just like high five towards each other. But now open those arms out and away. Think like Madonna Vogue, okay? Then close the arms. Really try to get them to touch and squeeze them together and then open back out again. When they're opening, I want you to focus on the space right between your shoulder blades where your spine is, okay? And it's like your shoulder blades are trying to like hug the spine, basically. Okay, so you're squeezing together on the front and then squeezing together on the back. And it's like you're playing a game of peekaboo with a baby, okay? So now let's add on to this layer here. That game of peekaboo with the baby is where you're gonna start to hinge back as you hide your face away from that baby and then lean yourself forward as your arms open out to the side. Pull back into that hinge position. Make sure that your hips, heart, and head are still staying in that alignment. We're not even curving the spine yet. So your suspenders from front to back, from hips to ribs, are still in the same position. They're not stretching out. They're not lengthening. And if your shoulders are starting to feel a little tired here, bring them down a little bit. So you can push the hands together in front of the face, and then the elbows are kind of going down by the side like a letter W. Okay, instead of a field goal up here. All right, now hold the arms together. And if you can't quite get them to touch in front of the face, just get them as close as you can to each other. So the more you squeeze or the more you try to push them in towards each other, and if it's just the hands, that works too. But now tiny little pulses up and down and up and down and up and down. As you continue here, what you're working on is those pec muscles right here in the front of the body, right here at the chest. Okay, so as you're pressing, squeezing those arms together, even the elbows if you can, you're feeling all of that engagement coming not only from the chest, but check back in with the core. 4 more, 3, 2, and 1. Nice job, you guys. Lower the arms down, reach for the knees, and then roll the whole body down, like the arms are just dead weights, pulling your body into a nice forward fold. Okay, you can let your belly, your heart rest onto the thighs. Let your head gently, very gently, reach down between the legs, okay, so that you get a nice polar stretch into the neck and the upper back and even down the entire spine itself. And then it's like you're being brought back to life. So like a puppet, as that string is pulling you back upright, stack the hips, then the ribs, then the heart, the shoulders, the head, and you find that nice long posture again, okay? So if you do that, if you're very aware of like the spine and like each individual bone stacking on top of itself, I want you to think or imagine your spine is like a stack of books, okay? So we have, and so now go ahead and roll yourself back down again to where your arms are pulling you down towards the ground. It's like you're trying to touch your toes. So your stack of books just kind of just like a Jenga tower just fell forward. Okay, so now stack your Jenga tower back up and go one piece at a time. Tailbone, low back, mid back, upper back, neck, and then head. And feel that when you lift up, there you go, guys. When you lift up, it's like literally there's like a little traction device pulling your head away from your shoulders, your ribs up away from your ribs. And that's because of your core. Try that one more time where you're rolling down, as long as that feels okay on your body. Feel where the stretch is in the body. Sometimes you'll feel it low back. Sometimes you'll feel it mid back, upper back, or even the neck, and then rolling yourself back up. Yes, and this is where we start to talk about that C-curve position of the spine, okay? So in this C-curve, we want to make sure that it's not a slump. This is a very this is not good for the body. All of that pressure is now being exerted into like the discs between the vertebrae of the spine. So what we taught when we talk about C-curve or flexion spine, we're engaging from the front of the body to strengthen and get that little bit of like scoop of the tailbone. So I want you to think of your pelvis now, if your hands were on your hips, and like scooping it forward like an ice cream scoop. Okay, so you scoop the hips forward as you pull the belly button up and in, like the letter J. Okay, so it's scooping up and in. So now you've got like almost like a little ski slope on your belly. Okay, that little valley that's scooping between hips and ribs there is your C curve. So notice the difference between C curve, where I'm at right now, and then slumped. Okay, very lazy, very just like not a lot of energy happening. But if you're C curved, you're still trying to lift up, but you're not tilted, but you're like, you've taken that angle and tilted it. Yeah, I guess a little bit of a tilt there. Okay, so you're still trying to lift up with that head. So in a C-curve position, it creates more of that engagement from the core. Okay, not that we didn't have any less in hinge back or straight spine, but you have or are aware of more of that position. Okay. So now with the feet, bring your attention to your legs there. Arms are out in front of you. And now we're going to keep the arms long or come back into your genie arm position. And this time as you rotate, lift that leg that you're rotating towards. Okay, all while still keeping that C-curve position. You come back center, you place the leg down. You lift the leg that you're turning towards up. And it's where you're trying to like bring the opposite knee towards the opposite elbow. So if you were in genie arms, like you're just closing that gap between knee and elbow. All right, good. So now your layer here, still working and focusing on the arms, but also with a little bit of emphasis on the core. Now I want you to punch across the body. So if your left leg is lifted, your right arm is punching. Then you bring your arms back in front of the heart there, foot places down, exhale, lift the right leg, punch the left arm, and then bring it back down. You're looking center, but you're not coming up out of that C curve. Your core is holding that position of the spine, okay? And so once you've got that movement down, it's not like we're gonna speed it up or anything, but we are gonna start to move like with the breath. And so now remember from at the beginning of the class, we had our little leg extension. So maybe you think of it like a can-can dancer, extending the leg out as you punch across the body. So when you're punching, think of like opposite hip towards the opposite rib. When you're punching across, that opposite rib cage is pulling down and into that opposite hip, like you're trying to connect the dots there. Okay. While you're connecting the dots, what you're connecting is internal obliques. They literally cross the body like an X. And so you're finding that waistline of maintaining that position. Go ahead and sit up nice and tall and give yourself a couple of like seated cat and cows, just to give that low back, if you started to feel any tension there, some release. And then exhaling, finding that cat spine or rolling all the way down and back up if that felt good in the body. Okay. And remember, I said at the beginning, listening to your body is where you get to find the improvements of like, I didn't like that. I'm not going to go that far back, or I'm not going to go that deep into a curve. So just because I'm saying like, okay, C curve, a hinge back might feel better, and you can do those same things in that hinge back position. Okay. So now from there, feet are flat for now. We're going to reach the arms out to the side, and then like you're making a snow angel, bring them down and then back up to a height that feels comfortable for you. Okay, so it might be all the way up overhead, or it might just be up to shoulder height, but wherever you're at, find the position of where you're inhaling and then exhaling. Okay, sometimes it might be you inhale, reach up overhead, then you exhale, lower back down. Okay, but wherever you're at there, you're finding how, like, especially when the arms lift up, that your spine is not like boop, popping out of position here. You see how I just C-curved in the opposite direction? We don't want that. We don't want this to this. We want to maintain that nice long posture, efficient line. Okay, so no wasted energy here. So then when your arms do reach up overhead, or sorry, out to the side. So everyone bring your arms out to the side. Your thumbs are up, your palms are forward, and you're coming back into that goalpost position and back out again. And each time you kind of reach the arms out to the side, think of like you're karate chopping down onto something. It doesn't have to be fast, but there's energy there where you're pushing down and out each time. Okay, so you can think of like holding on to like 2, 3, 5, 10 pounds that you're moving back and forth. Okay. As all this is happening, what you're going to do now is a little bit of rotation. So when the arms bend, you're going to hold that position, rotate to one side, rotate to the other side. Then when you come back through center after those two, reach out, pull in, rotate, rotate. Okay. Remember, if this feels like too much to hold those arms in that position, you lower the elbows down and continue with that rotation. But if you can, really, I urge yourself to like challenge yourself to keep those elbows in line with the shoulders. And so if you are looking for that extra challenge, then I want you to hold the arms out to the side, and like a sprinkler, you go from right to left. And then with the intermission between those two, you go in and out with the arms and then rotate, rotate. Okay, so all we're doing is like working with the levers of the body. The longer the arms, the heavier they are. Okay, the lower the arms are, the lighter they are. So you could do it and the arms are just lower, or you can bend those arms and have them low and straight and bend. Okay, but let's do one more each side, wherever you're at. And then rest the arms down by your side, all the way down by your hips. So not out in front of you, but down by your side. Okay. Hook the left arm underneath of your chair and lean your body towards the right, so that like you're not resisting the urge to kind of lean towards the right. You're letting that left arm soften down away from the ear and getting a nice little stretch there through the top of the shoulder, the side of the neck, as that right arm tries to touch the ground next to you. And then lift back up, hook the right arm underneath, reaching your left arm down by your side, left ear to the shoulder. And now check in with that fishbowl again. When you're leaning, we'll do that one more time each side. When you're leaning, try not to tilt your fishbowl to the side. So hips and pelvis are staying where they are, but it's the rib cage that is tilting, okay? That is creating that space along the left side. And that's where you might start to notice a little bit more of the stretch, not just in the top of the shoulder and the neck, but if you can sink your left hip down, you'll notice more left side of the body, okay? Then go to the other side, keep your right hip down as you go and reach towards the left. All right, and then come back up. Nice. Okay, so these are called our mermaid side bends. So if you have a chair without a what am I trying to say, armrest, this is going to be great. If you have a chair with an armrest, just kind of like scoot yourself to the side so that one leg can go out to the side. So I'm going to demo it with the left leg out to the side and the right leg out in front of me. Okay. So with that right leg out in front of me, with the left foot out to the side of me, both feet are still facing forward. They're like skis, okay? So they're parallel, they're like the number 11 or like French fries, but you're in this sort of like almost like a side lunge position. If we were to take that chair out from underneath of you, you'd be holding a side lunge basically, okay? So in that position, your arms are gonna reach out to the side. You can place one hand down onto your chair and reach the left arm up overhead. So that's option number one. As you're reaching overhead, try to connect the dots from heel to hand, left heel to left hand, then come back up and go down that left leg as the right arm comes up for a counter stretch. Yes, and this is where we just get deeper stretches in through that side body. Your next option, if holding onto that chair felt like that's maybe a little easy, reach the arm down like you're trying to touch the ground. And if you can't touch the ground, that's where it works on more of that core strength. Come up and over for that counter stretch. And so it's not that we're trying to touch the ground. We're reaching in that direction, sure. But being able to maintain this position is like all core strength, lifting back up and rotating to the side. Okay, so if you're not quite there yet where you're reaching down to the ground, instead of reaching down to the ground, your hand just hovers above the chair. Like just put your finger pads onto the chair to challenge yourself. So it's just like maybe one finger of a kickstand rather than the whole arm. Okay, but eventually maybe you can work up to where the arms are like a windmill going back and forth, back and forth. Oh, and it feels just so good. So now we're going to rotate ourselves to where your left hand is onto the right knee and your right hand is onto the side of the chair. Okay, so from the side, disregard my left leg, I got a wall in my way. But from the side, you're rotating your heart towards the right side of the room. Okay, left leg is long out to the side there. Okay, lift up and really try to push your left foot into the ground, like you're trying to like push yourself forward. You're still staying upright though. You might start to feel left booty, left quad in the front of the thigh, but a lot of obliques are helping you to maintain that twist. So now keep that rotation. You're still looking towards the right, but now reach the arms out to the side. Okay, lower back down. Nothing else is moving, but it's like you're flapping your wings, lifting the arms, opening out, and then lowering back down. Yes, and now when you lift the arms, can you lift the head, the spine, everything a little taller so you're not putting as much weight into that just right thigh that's connected towards the chair, but instead you're trying to almost lift away, pull away from the chair. Now hold that rotation, arms out to the side, and then exhale, rotate all the way around to the other side. And then continue rotating all the way around towards the right, and then all the way around back towards the left. Again, nothing else is moving. You are stable from the belly button down, but it's from the belly button up that the rotation is happening. Remember your carousel. Can you imagine if you put somebody on a carousel and that carousel is just like, woo, rolling all around the place? That would be like a scary haunted house kind of carousel. We want it to be nice and tall, just streamlined, efficient movement. Okay, so now when you end towards the right, looking towards the right, place your right hand onto the chair, left hand onto the leg. Yep, and then lean forward into that, like you're looking over your wishing well again. And now we're trying to find or feel that whole left side on the back stretching open, in the side of the hip, maybe in the front of the hip. If you don't quite feel it, slide your left leg back a little bit. If it feels more precarious of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall over, just lift your arms up a little higher. Okay, so your straight arms there. But breathe. Remember to breathe as we're stretching here. We strengthen the body and then we lengthen the muscles. So now slide that left leg back underneath of you. Move yourself off to the right side of your chair. So it's just your left butt cheek and thigh attached and your right leg goes off to the side. Yes. And you've got that hip, heart, head connection. Arms out to the side. So now when you go down to the left, your left arm places onto the chair, level 1, okay? We always start with the basics, the foundational movements. As your right arm reaches up and you feel and line up the hand to heel connection, lift back up. And then exhale to the right side. Left arm overhead. Inhale, lift up. And you can stay there with that hand onto the chair, but maybe just don't put as much pressure into the palm, okay? Maybe you start to take away one finger at a time. So if all 5 fingers were down, now just 4 fingers and your palm. And then 3 fingers and then your palm. And then eventually coming to no fingers to where your hand is just kind of like hovering. It's like, I'm there if you need me. I got you if you need me, okay? If you're finally at that point though, to where you don't want that hand, try to windmill the arms from side to side, keeping your right leg connected towards the earth there. Your right foot does not lift or lower. Yeah, so with these mermaid stretches, by opening up the sides of the body, we're also opening up the fascial tissue to breathe better, to bring in more air, more oxygen for the body. Let's do one more to the left. One more counter stretch to the right. Oh, feels so good. And then when you lift up, rotate your body so your right hand comes to the left knee, your left hand comes to the chair. Lift, 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 lift even taller. Like there's a line of people out in front of you and like, what are they standing in line for? What's over there? Okay. And now keep that rotation. You're still looking over those heads of the people in front of you. The right foot is anchored to the earth there. It's not coming away. It's shackled at the ankle there. Then lift the arms and then lower the arms. Lift and lower and feel how the feet are still connected towards the earth. Even though you're lifting the arms, I know sometimes it feels like the legs want to do something too. But by keeping them strong, keeping them stable, you're doing a great job of maintaining that efficient movement. You're not wasting any energy. Then you're going to leave the arms lifted and then rotate all the way around. So you're looking towards that long leg off to your right side and then rotate all the way around to the left side again. You're like a washer machine here. So wring out all of the excess water from the waistline. What you're doing here when we rotate is a good way to like help move along the food that moves in the digestion tract. Okay, so the food moves up the right side, your ascending colon, across the transverse colon and down into the descending colon. So each time you exhale to the right, you're helping that food move along. You exhale to the left, you're moving that food even further along. So it helps with digestion. You're giving your organs a nice little massage. One more to the right, we end to the left. So your right hand comes back down to the leg, left hand to the chair. And again, looking out over those people in front of you. And then look down over your wishing well so you get a deeper stretch, a deeper rotation through that right of the hip. If you don't feel anything yet, slide the right leg back behind you. And we're looking for something like in the front hip pocket as well as down the side of that hip. If you still quite don't feel it, lower yourself down, bending into the elbows, and try that. Okay, so remember, there's always options. Lift yourself back up though. Let's bring both legs back out underneath of us. Nice. And we'll start again with those roll downs or cat and cow. So if rolling all the way down is not accessible or doesn't feel good for you, you just stay right here and round through the spine like an angry cat, or lift and pull the heart forward like your udders on a cow are being pulled forward, okay? So if you're rolling down, you're going all the way down, touch the toes, and then lifting all the way back up and lift the heart towards the ceiling. So let's try for 3 total. If you've got one more, go for 1 more. If you've got 2 more, go for 2 more. Listen to your body. Okay. And then when you're done, I want you to scoot yourself back and hope. I think most people do have a back on their chair. I use a stool just for like easy access so I can like rotate and see so you can see all angles. But with the back of your chair, I want you to scoot your butt as far forward as you feel comfortable on your chair there. If your chair doesn't have a back, it's totally fine. Imagine that you do, okay? Hands onto the knees. We're gonna take an inhale to stack the spine, like stack all those books on top of each other, like lift them up. And then as you roll back, find that C-curve position. Your tailbone scoops that ice cream scooper underneath of you until you touch the back of your chair. Okay, like literally feel like how this opens up your front hip pockets and it starts to where you don't feel the bones of your bottom underneath of you, your sits bones underneath of you anymore. Okay, so now reach the arms forward, hold that C curve again. And remember, if the C curve does not feel comfortable for you, hinge back. So you would lift back up and hinge your body back. Okay, still touching barely the back of your chair there. So now reaching one arm up as the other arm goes down by your side. And then switch the arms. Okay. So it's like one of those like dance moves. You're doing like the twist and shout here. Okay, but no twisting yet. You can shout if you want to. But as this is happening, feel how the body wants to twist. And most of the time, it'll want to twist towards the arm that's going down. I don't want you to do that just yet. That is where we're going though. So get excited. Okay, this is like the excitement of Pilates. So then as one arm goes down, so I'm going to demo it with my left arm down, I want you to look at where it goes. And when you twist to the left, you're going to be able to reach that arm back behind you a little bit more. But when you do, reach the top arm up even higher. And then you rotate back center, your arms swish past each other. You look to the right as it reaches back behind you, and then lift up higher, higher, higher through your left arm. So you can think like sparkle fingers to really Get that energy through the arms. Soften the shoulders down away from the ears. Okay, so remember with that C curve, and if this doesn't feel good in the back of the body, you come up and you stay tall while we're doing this. But by changing the angles or the posture of the body, we challenge more of the core. Okay, so that when we are standing or sitting upright, then this is like easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Okay. So now each time you're rotating to one side, let's take a break for a moment there. If you felt anything in the back, take a moment to really like find the powerhouse again. If you feel it in the back, that's an indication that you're not quite using the core to its fullest potential, okay? So remember, we're gonna lift the core up, we're gonna wrap it around and think about everything is just like pulling up and in. So now the next layer is going to be where we don't swing anything, but you're reaching the left arm behind you, lifting the left leg up and trying to find those lines from fingertip to fingertip and maybe leg reaching out in front of you, okay? So then coming back forward, swishing the arms past each other, reaching back with the right arm like you're like reaching for something in the back of your car or something that's behind you. Yeah, and so this is like our peak pose right here. This is as hard as it gets. Maybe something may have been harder for you. Like if this is easy, notice that. What is challenging for your body? And then do more of that so that it's not, so then it becomes easy. Okay. All right. So after you finish there, make sure you got one, like finish up with one more on each side. Keeping those legs wide again. So now step the feet out super wide, toes are turned out to the side. And with your hands resting onto your thighs, like you're leaning forward for a really good story that somebody's telling you, this is going to help to open up and stretch the chest as well as the inner thighs. So when you twist your body to the right, you're going to push your left hand into that thigh. Then your shoulder is going to drop down a little lower towards the ground. You're going to feel that left shoulder opening up, your left inner thigh opening up. And then when you inhale and lift your body back up again, we rotate to the other side. Inhale and lift. Exhale, rotate. Inhale, lift. 3 more each side, rotate. Yes. Okay, so we've got 4 different planes of movement that the spine can move through. We've got our flexion, which is our C curve, extension, which can be seen as our hinge back or leaning back. We've got our rotation, which is what we're doing right now. And then we've also got our side bending. So if we can move through all 4 ranges of those motions with the spine, then it will give us a healthy spine. I think that was 3 each side. So go ahead and walk the feet back together. And now this time I want everything to touch, okay? So knees together, ankles together, heels, you feel everything just like zipping up and pulling in, okay? So now with that pulling in motion, you get that lift from the pelvic floor, pulling away from your chair, away from the seat of your pants. Now lift both of your heels up, okay? So heels are lifted right in front of and underneath of the knees. And the hands will start to reach back behind you. I want you to lean back with both of them this time. So instead of like one arm lifted, one arm back to help with balance, try leaning both hands back. Keep the heels lifted as you come back forward, reach forward, and then exhale, lean back, reach back, okay? Inhale, reach forward, exhale, lean back, reach back. Awesome. So then if you feel comfortable with it, like say you're touching the back of your chair with your back there, you might have enough energy and strength to be able to lift one or both legs up and then place them down, reach the arms up, pull yourself back, find that Goldilocks, that sweet spot of being able to just like, boop, lift up the legs using the core. Okay, so anything you ever do, just always imagine like, is my core working? Can my core do this work for me? And then we'll be able to stay upright. We'll be able to stand up tall. We'll be able to walk forward without feeling so tired by the end of the day. Try that 2 more times. Remember, it's just either one leg or both legs. Okay. All right. So then lower those heels back down. And this time with the heels remaining connected, this is called our Pilates V. So if you look down at your feet, just turn the toes open. So you could fit about like a fist to 2 fists between the toes. So if you wanted to reach down and measure that, like your fist right there would be between the feet, the toes of the feet. So now in that Pilates V position, notice how your knees had to open up. Make sure that they're not splayed out to the side, but keeping them at shoulder distance apart. Okay, so they'll stay and remain at shoulder distance apart. In ballet, this is called first position. So lifting up, and remember what it felt like to zip everything back together. You pull yourself up from that zipper effect. Heels are like holding a $100 bill between them. Lift and lower those heels up and down without them letting go of that $100 bill. Yeah, so now while this is happening, I'll give you a couple of different options. We kind of bring it full circle at this point to where you can lean forward into your legs. And when you lift the heels, your body lifts as well. Okay, so you're giving yourself that little extra resistance. And it's almost like you're holding a plank here. Okay, so when you hold a plank, like you're pulling everything up and in. And then as you move forward, you deepen that plank position, that plank connection. Okay. Your other option is to stay upright, find your genie arm position, your heels continue to lift and lower, and it's like you're pushing and lifting a pedal up and down, but each time your heels lift, rotate. Lower the heels, come back center, lift the heels and rotate. Lower the heels, come back center, and continue. So then it becomes more of like a pat the head, rub the belly kind of situation. That would be really mean if I made you guys do that while lifting those heels, pat the head and rub the belly while lifting the heels. Woo! That's a lot. I don't know if I can do that. Switch the arms if you're in those genie arm positions. Okay. 2 more each side. And then from there, after your last one each side, I want you to keep the rotation to the right or to the left, or if you're turned towards the camera, just turn towards the camera so you can see what's going on. And then you're going to reach the arms out to the side, like you're going in for a big hug. And then lean back into your hinge, come back forward. So your heels are lifted, they're still connected. Lean back and then come back forward. Yes. So we're twisted to one side. So we're not facing forward, going back and forth, but instead reaching back, one arm behind you like you're sawing down a tree with that one arm. Now I want you to go down and forward between the legs. The back arm is now up towards the ceiling. And you don't have to go very far. Go to the point of where your body feels most comfortable. Reach back for something, reach forward, and then down for something. Okay? What is it that you want behind you? What is it that you want in front of you? And down between your feet. Okay, one more time. Back and forth. And now keeping your rotation, you come back up, hips, heart, head in line. Rotate like the washing machine that you are, or sprinkler. And then do that 6 more times, hinging back, coming forward. Or going all the way back and then coming all the way forward. Good. So now finding those external obliques. Probably have about 2 more left. And we'll get into that warm or cool down. Warm down. Hopefully your body's warm at this point. All right. So then from there, you're going to take the legs back wide again. Leave your left leg out to the side. Your right leg stretches long. Okay. So if you need to adjust your bottom onto your chair, that's like, make your adjustments. Okay. So then both hands are going to reach off towards the left leg, your bent leg, and then lower yourself down and keeping the right toes pulled up towards the ceiling. So when you're lowering yourself down, you're trying to get that heart right above the knee, or maybe even your right hand down towards the foot or the outside of your ankle. So we're coming into that slight rotation there. We're looking for a right side body stretch, okay, into that like lower back, that quadratus lumborum, oblique kind of stretch there. Then you come back up, both hands, they're not pushing on the leg because we don't want to get into hyperextension where we're compromising the knee, but instead reach forward for that long leg out in front of you. Okay, you can slide them down the leg, but just make sure you're not like pushing into the ground there. Lift back up and then reach forward. Lift up. And so you might start to feel a little bit of a hamstring stretch, but now we're also feeling that left side opening up. One more time. All right, then bring the legs together in front of you in that right long leg, you bring it up, you bend the knee, and you place that right ankle on top of the left thigh into your piriformis stretch or figure four or pigeon pose. So this is sometimes like a pretty good stretch depending on how much you felt like you worked today. If you want more though, you gently, with your elbow or your hand, press down onto the thigh, not the knee. So onto the thigh to increase that stretch. Okay. So now remember the breath, the air, the oxygen and nutrients coming into the body. You can breathe into that space where you feel the stretch happening. Like literally envision the tissue expanding open like a balloon when you breathe into it. And then when you exhale, let the tension go, breathe it out, and feel if you just got a little lower into that stretch. We'll repeat that on the other side. So now right leg out to the side, left leg long out to the side, both hands onto your bent right knee, and leaning and pulling away from that left foot that's turned up towards the ceiling. So bending into your elbows, trying to keep that left hip sinking down towards the chair, okay? Like you got something like a piece of paper under your butt, and I'm trying to come behind you and take it out, and you're like, no, it's stuck under my butt because I'm pushing into the chair there. Okay, and then lifting back up. Okay, so then reaching the arms over towards the left leg. All we're doing is reaching forward into that stretch and then coming back up again. Okay, if that doesn't feel good, just the reach forward, just make sure you're sliding the hands, not putting that much pressure into it. Okay, but if holding yourself upright in mid-air is too much, just slide down. One more time. Then bring the legs together. Left ankle on top of right thigh. Maybe this is where you stay, or maybe you gently press onto the inside of your thigh there and come into that deeper stretch, that piriformis stretch. Where we're trying to feel it is on that like outer edge, that outside part of your glute. You might feel it like kind of going even down the leg. Sometimes even inner thigh can be felt on these stretches. That just depends on where your body is carrying tension. Okay, so there's nothing right or wrong about like, oh my gosh, I feel like here, and she didn't say anything about it. Your body, as long as it's not pain that you're feeling, but your body just might carry tension depending on how you carry it throughout the day. So going back and like this coming full circle with posture, how are you sitting? How are you standing? So go ahead and take your feet back underneath of you again. Find that fishbowl of where you're sitting. Feel how the tailbone is like rooting down, like there's something pulling it into the chair underneath of you. And when that happens, you kind of feel the navel, the belly button pulling backwards towards the spine a little bit. Not that you're collapsing, okay, but that you feel like there's equal work being done on the front and back side, equal work done on the sides of the body, as well as from top and bottom of the torso, okay? You feel the shoulders soft, and maybe this even helps to close the eyes, but the head is lifted, the neck is long, and the breath is easy. We just open up the airways here, okay? So now let's remember to maintain this posture, like shoulders are down and back. Ribs are expanding out and in. Spine is staying lifted. So whether you're sitting, whether you're standing, whether you're waiting in line or driving your car or sitting in the passenger side or in the back of the seat there, we want to try to find that length so that breathing becomes a little easier. Moving becomes a little more efficient, okay? So that is our class for today, you guys. Good job. Again, give yourself a round of applause. It was so good seeing everyone again and all these new faces as well. So if you have any questions, please let me know. You can unmute yourself at this point or say hello in the chat. All right, I'll see you guys next time.